I'd like to preface this by saying that the original films aren't bad in any way. Most of them are iconic in their own right, but in some circumstances, the sequels just improved on the source material and were bigger in scope and better in execution. Most sequels are just cash grabs to prolong a franchise, but sometimes a sequel comes along that is just absolutely amazing, lovingly crafted by someone who really understood the universe of the film. Before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Every new sub helps us achieve our goal and keeps us motivated to create new content. With that being said, I'm your host, Jamie, and here are 10 sequels better than the original. Number 1. Terminator 2: Judgment Day. James Cameron's magnum opus, Terminator 2: Judgment Day, is not simply a sublime sequel that exceeds the original masterpiece, but it is one of the greatest films ever made. Cameron's director's cut is widely regarded as the definitive version of the Terminator 2, as it adds pathos and more emotional weight to an already phenomenal film. The original Terminator, released in 1984, is a sci-fi classic that was only really held back by its budget. While Cameron got crafty and creative with its practical effects, there are aspects that do not hold up. Cut to 7 years later. It's summer of 1991 and cinema is about to radically shift. Terminator 2 is released to a massive critical and commercial success. Even though Cameron sold the rights for Terminator to Columbia TriStar, he got first crack at a sequel and he went all out. The studio took a chance on a bigger script that required groundbreaking visual effects, which ultimately paid off in spades. T2's effects were so groundbreaking that even Spielberg pivoted on how he'd make this little film he was working on at the time called Jurassic Park. Even beyond being a technical masterpiece, Terminator 2 has a poignant narrative and pitch-perfect, emotional performances from everyone, even Schwarzenegger, who plays a robot. See all this action over on Pluto, Paramount Plus, Hulu, Fubo, Sling, Roku, Prime, Google Play, Apple TV, or Fandango. Number 2. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. I may get backlash for saying this, but the original Star Trek movie wasn't exactly a high bar to exceed. Don't get me wrong, having a Star Trek film hit the big screen over a decade after the iconic original series was canceled must have been so cathartic. But let's be honest, the 1979 original movie would have made a decent episode of Star Trek. Unfortunately, it stretched over 2 hours and moved at a snail's pace. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan was, in all technical aspects, a decent, albeit overrated film. It streamlined the script, improved the effects, and fans could get excited that it was a direct sequel to a Star Trek episode, specifically the episode Space Speed. Upon its release, The Wrath of Khan was the best Star Trek film, and even the best Star Trek anything in over a decade. Take some time to check it out on MGM Plus, Paramount Plus, Sling, Roku, Prime, Philo, Google Play, Apple TV, or Fandango. Number 3. Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. The Empire Strikes Back is not only superior to the original Star Wars in almost every way, its pacing could have used a little work. It set a gold standard for sequels. Like Terminator 2, it is one of the greatest films ever made. Star Wars has quite a few great films in its canon, and the only one that has ever come close to Empire is The Last Jedi. And I'm not just saying that to stir up controversy and get a rise out of viewers, but because it's academically true. Pause, my fellow viewers. Breathe. Let your hate out on me in the comments. And by me, I don't mean me, Jamie, but writer Steve, who has a degree in film studies. Now back to The Empire Strikes Back and how great it is. The story is darker and more emotional. the film expands the Star Wars lore, effectively builds, and continues to grow its characters. Empire is also about as technically groundbreaking as the original. It also introduced the world to fan favorite character Yoda, and was the first Star Wars film to feature John Williams' scoring masterpiece, The Imperial March. See the battle on Disney+, Prime, Apple TV, or Fandango. Number 4, Friday the 13th, Part 4. I'll be honest with you, I don't know why Friday the 13th, Part 4 is on this list, as it is overall not superior to the original. It's not even the best Friday the 13th sequel. That would go to Part 6, Jason Lives. But I'll roll with it. Part 4, the final chapter, which it is not, is the first Friday the 13th sequel that feels like it has an appropriate budget. The lighting and general camera work, which includes track and crane shots, are more professional than anything we'd really seen in the series thus far. Jason Voorhees is also near his iconic aesthetic. Part 4 is also notable for introducing fan favorite final guy Tommy Jarvis, played by the promising 80s child actor Corey Feldman. Although the quintessential version of Jarvis is played by Tom Matthews in Part 6. The kills in Part 4 are more explicit, and the characters are far more amusingly cartoonish than in the original. Part 4 is also the first Friday the 13th that truly recognized Jason as a star. So there is less of Jason in the shadows, and the audience is generally made aware of where he is, even if the characters are not. But have fun with this chase on Max, Hulu, Roku, Prime, Google Play, Apple TV, or Fandango. Number 5, Aliens. James Cameron is unsurprisingly on this list again as a director. However, Cameron did not direct the original Alien, which was helmed by Ridley Scott. The original was a taut horror film that deftly blended in sci-fi. It had a great ensemble with Sigourney Weaver's Ripley in her seminal role, and H.G. Geiger inspiring the epic production design. The original Alien is horrifyingly gorgeous, with insane practical gore effects. Cut to 8 years later, Cameron, hot off Terminator, and a huge fan of Alien, took over as director for the follow-up Aliens. He was allotted a decent budget and a fair amount of creative control. Instead of trying to top the horror of the original, he pivoted to action sci-fi, and horror took a bit of a back seat. It proved to be an excellent creative choice. Cameron expanded the Alien lore, further fleshed out Ripley to the point where Weaver's performance garnered an Academy Award nomination, and executed thrilling action sequences on a large scope. It also further explored themes of corporate corruption and new ones about family. The new character, Newt, revealed as the daughter of Ripley, added to that new element and dynamic. Check this out on Hulu, Disney+, Max, Roku, Google Play, Apple TV, Fandango, or Prime.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Hi, I'm Lacy Jane, and these are my designs. Some of my pieces will be in an upcoming showcase at the Annex. If you like what you see, find me at Lacy Jane's Designs on Facebook. You can also follow me on Instagram at Lacy Jane Designs, where you can also contact me if you'd like to purchase any of my artworks. Thanks again.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Number 6, Spider-Man II. 20 years ago, comic book movies were much more scarce, and a great one only came around every now and then. The original Spider-Man was a phenomenal start to what would become one of Sony's most popular and enduring cinematic franchises. Spider-Man II was an incredible feat because it topped the first one in almost every aspect, and to this day is still one of the best superhero films of all time. Getting X2 the year prior, and then Spider-Man 2, felt like we were entering a Marvel renaissance. The action sequences in Spider-Man 2 are grander and more exhilarating. The villain, Dr. Octopus, played exceptionally by Alfred Molina, was dynamic and sympathetic. He became and felt viscerally dangerous in his descent into insanity. The level of emotion, conflict, and motif of forgiveness is executed with such finesse in Spider-Man 2, it wasn't even topped until the monumental Spider-Man No Way Home. So swing on over to Netflix, Disney+, Hulu, Sling, Google Play, Prime, Apple TV, Fandango, or FX Now to check this out. Number 7, Dawn of the Dead. 10 years after George A. Romero redefined the zombie genre and changed horror with his classic Night of the Living Dead, he released the just as classic follow-up, Dawn of the Dead. The original's old-school black and white aesthetic harkened back to a horror of a bygone era. Its brutally authentic gore and blistering politics reflected a time of turmoil, as well as a new age of cinema. Romero's follow-up, Dawn of the Dead, pushed the envelope further. The script was every bit as smart as Night, but with a bigger budget, the filmmakers were able to do more. They upped the gore while unabashedly satirized rampant consumerism. In the original, the dead rose because of radiation from Venus reflected off our satellites. However, in Dawn of the Dead, the reason was given that hell was full, so the dead rose. This created a supernatural reason for the zombies that forces the viewers to examine the amount of evil that plagues humanity. Make sure to take a gander on Prime, Google Play, Apple TV, or Fandango. Number 8, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Captain America: The First Avenger was, in retrospect, a great foundation for the Steve Rogers character, and a good start for the series. It was straightforward, with old-school action and clear protagonist and antagonist. Then its follow-up, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, comes out, post-Avengers, and blows the original out of the water. Steve Rogers grew more conflicted and nuanced in The Winter Soldier. His journey is him trying to grasp how the U.S. has changed, and what freedom means in an increasingly technological and complex world. This is also the Russo brothers' directorial debut in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they would become pivotal in building up the MCU. It's crazy to think that Marvel giant Kevin Feige placed his cards on directors who, prior to the MCU, were best known for You, Me, and Dupree. Regardless, The Winter Soldier is lean, brilliant, with powerhouse performances. The film demonstrates the kind of visceral and thrilling action sequences the MCU would be capable of. This is also one of the first solo MCU films in which other larger elements of the MCU blended into it. Nick Fury, Black Widow, even S.H.I.E.L.D. on its larger scale, were all introduced in the Iron Man series, yet were also a prominent part in this film. Sam Wilson, or the Falcon, was introduced. Bucky as the Winter Soldier is still one of the MCU's best villains, appeared for the first time, and even Doctor Strange name-dropped a couple of years prior to his first film. Despite all its connective tissue to the larger MCU, past and future Captain America: The Winter Soldier still functions an exceptional standalone film. It is also one of the many comic book films robbed of a Best Picture nomination, amongst other things. Make sure to check it out on Disney+, Prime, Google Play, Apple TV, or Fandango. Number 9. The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is arguably the best sequel ever made, and one of the best films ever made. Not a Batman film, let alone a comic book film, has really topped it. Its influence was so potent, it has affected every comic book film after, and was the inspiration for the Arrowverse, the DCEU, the Arkham games, and launched Christopher Nolan's career into the stratosphere. While Batman Begins certainly still had a comic book feel, it was dark, smart, and surprisingly grounded. The Dark Knight took that to a whole new level. It explored the nature of chaos, how we react to it when the rug is pulled from under us, and what is the tipping point that pushes good men to do evil. Heath Ledger has one of the best performances in history with his iteration of the Joker. It is so iconic that no one who has played the Joker since has entirely moved away from Ledger's portrayal. It was so great it cost him his life. Aaron Eckhart's performance as Harvey Dent, Two-Face, gave award-caliber performance as well, but was just overshadowed by how masterful Heath Ledger was. The score by Hans Zimmer is unforgettable. The script is brilliant, and the action, thrilling. The Dark Knight was not only met with unanimous critical acclaim, it is one of the most beloved films of the last 20 years. It ended its global box office with over $1 billion, which was unheard of for a comic book film at the time, as well as 8 Oscar nominations. Its snub for Best Picture nomination received such a backlash that the Academy expanded its Best Picture category to 10 films, which it hadn't had in decades. Regardless of the influence and accolades, The Dark Knight is an unbridled cinematic masterpiece that you should check out on Max, Hulu, Prime, Google Play, Apple TV, or Fandango. Number 10. The Bourne Supremacy. I think this choice is debatable. There are many arguments for and against it. That being said, The Bourne Identity and The Bourne Supremacy are both great films. Supremacy loses some of the intrigue that Identity fashioned, because part of the tension and fun of Identity was Jason Bourne figuring out who he was and why he had such skills. Identity also really shocked viewers by how good of an action hero Matt Damon is. What Supremacy really brought to the table was Paul Greengrass' style that came to define action films for years to come. The editing was fun and exciting. The story and world building was strong. The action was bigger and bolder. The villain, however, aside from matching Bourne's skills, was typical. Truthfully, The Bourne Ultimatum is the sequel that should be on this list. Ultimatum remains the series' apex and is one of the greatest action films ever. Its script is sharper than either of its predecessors. It's streamlined, it's the editing, the action sequences are at their peak, the politics are biting and topical, and the pacing and twists are sublime. Whether you all agree or not, I'm sure we can all agree the Bourne franchise is awesome. But let me know what you think after you watch this on Peacock, Billo, Google Play, Apple TV, Fandango, or Prime. Thanks for checking out the video. Did we leave any films off the list? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to tap that bell icon to stay up to date with our latest releases. You can reach out to us on Twitter or X at StudiosFat, or chat with us on Discord, linked below. Make sure to check out our very own merch store located at fatninja.shop. All proceeds go towards our next film project, so we'd greatly appreciate it. I've been your host, Jamie. Thanks again. See you in the next one.